Hello and welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different from what I normally do. I'm going to be playing a post-game show of a Redskins game that happened in December of 1978. It was between the Chicago Bears, and it was the last game of the season. The Redskins had to win that game in order to make the playoffs, which they ended up not doing. The Redskins that year started out 6-0. It was Jack Party's first year as a coach, and they ended up 8-8, not making the playoffs. They fell to the Bears 14-10. The tape will begin with audio from an NFL Today show promoting the game, and then on to the Redskins post-game show. Be locker room talk. There'll be some comments from the announcers. Ken Beatrice's sports call questions. Should be interesting to listen to. I will periodically, as I see fit, stop the tape and make comments on various things that are said. So anyway, here's the show.
You are looking live at sold-out RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. It's sunny, 52 degrees, and the Redskins know they must defeat the Chicago Bears today to keep their slim hopes alive for a wild card spot in the NFL playoffs.
It's an off day for Dick Vermeil and the Philadelphia Eagles, but he's watching this game closely. We'll talk to him about his team's playoff possibilities. All that and more coming up on the NFL Today.
Today is sponsored by Tuborg Gold, the golden beer of Danish teas, Tuborg Breweries Limited, Baltimore, Maryland. Wang, makers of computers and word processors. And by Black & Decker. When America has a job to do, it reaches for Black & Decker. From the CBS Sports Control in New York, here's Brent Musburger.
I was going to mention the audio at the very beginning of this is barely audible, but it clears up quickly.
Redskins had 6 penalties for 60 yards, and the Bears had 6 for 46. And it's just hard to believe that the Redskins went down to another defeat here at RFK. And I know that Joe Margolis, the great business manager and assistant general manager of the Washington Redskins, hates to see what happens today, but out of everything bad, a little good. Joe will be home for Christmas. We'll all be home for Christmas. And I'm heading out west to a little skiing, got some six wax, heading to Colorado. And I was all prepared, to catch a flight back to Atlanta next week, but that won't happen now. So not unless you're going to do the Atlanta Falcon broadcast. No, I'll pass. Okay. A special thanks to, of course, a lot of the folks that worked with us throughout the season. Sam, to Rick Hunt, our statistician from Warrenton. Always a pleasure to have him. Len Dybert with us throughout all of the games here at home. Jimmy Gallant. To our engineers, Bert Cohen, Ed Painter, Bob Allen. To a special Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to our producer, Bonnie Smith. Hey, we got it. Don't we have to pick the most valuable offensive defensive player? We sure do. We don't want to forget that. Well, I'm going for John Riggins. You're going for John Riggins? I tell you, Lamar Perry's 2 interceptions. I think played a real good defensive game. But since this is probably Ron McDowell's last game, he blocked a field goal, did a good job of defense. Let's give the watch to Ron McDowell. He played an outstanding game on defense. The outstanding Redskin offensive player then is John Riggins, and defensively Ron McDowell, both receiving a Spidell digital watch from Fleischer's Jewelers of Maryland. Enjoyed the year, Sam. Hope to be back with you next season, 1979, with the Washington Redskins. Me too. Little sunshine to you. And Merry Christmas to you all.
Now the final score once again, the Chicago Bears 14 and the Washington Redskins 10.
I was going to mention that the announcers that year were Dan Lovett and Sam Huff. The next year, Frank Herzog came on with Sam Huff, and a few years later, Sonny Jurgensen joined the team. There was a trio, and they were on for many years. And finally, Frank Herzog was off, and then Sam Huff recently retired. There's now a couple of others, and with Sonny Jurgensen still doing the Redskin games. But just wanted to mention that prior to doing the Redskins game, Sonny Jurgensen used to be on national television doing various games. As a matter of fact, he was one of the commentators on that Miracle Meadowlands game in 1978. Go ahead and continue.
Stay tuned for the WMAL Redskins post-game show. Ken Beatrice will be on with the analysis of today's game, along with Sam Huff in the locker room. During the post-game show, Ken will also be taking your phone calls at 432-WMAL. The Washington Redskins have been brought to you by Mann's Potato Chips. They're better than the rest. National Permanent Federal Savings and Loan Association. Since 1890, serving the Washington area, and now with 11 locations for your convenience. Amtrak, we've been working on the railroad. By Pabst Blue Ribbon Beer. Since 1844, the quality has always come through. And by your Chevrolet dealer. Come drive a Monte Carlo. Put a little distance between yourself and the crowd.
I was going to go ahead and stop this for a minute. One of the sponsors of that Redskins game was Mann's Potato Chips. They just mentioned that. I don't actually have a commercial from them, but I did discuss on one of my shows a few weeks ago Mann's Potato Chips, and I had recently listened to this tape and had heard them being mentioned as a sponsor.
This is WMAL Radio 63 in Washington, D.C. And now, let's take a look at the traffic as Redskins fans make their way homeward for the last time this year. Here's Officer Carl Miller.
Hi, thank you. Traffic leaving your main parking lot with real good ease. With the south parking lot as you enter into the southeast freeway, the north parking lot as you enter into Benning Road, and also into East Capitol Street. The south parking lot into East Capitol Street, all of those flowing smoothly. Our main problem is the Redskins fans. Apparently they have either the Metro boarding platform where you board the trains is packed or something, because they're not letting the fans use the escalators to go down. They let a small group go at a time, and it's causing a backup on 19th Street at the Armory entrance. So they're walking down to the hospital entrance. It's also causing a little problem there. Be very careful. We have a lot of pedestrians all over the East Capitol Street and 19th Street. Be back another look in a few minutes. Officer Carl Miller, WML Radio 63, Redskins traffic report.
I wanted to mention also, back then when traffic reports were done on WMAL, police officer would do them from a helicopter, and this particular day he was doing it for the Redskin game, help people exiting the stadium, and warning people to avoid the area because of all the traffic congestion. But that's how traffic was done, not like a person's in a studio and they get the information off the computer and just ad lib from there.
Radio 63. This is Tom Gager. Redskins football has become a tradition in Washington, and thanks to your loyal support. And now here's Joe Theismann to tell you about another great Washington area tradition, Hot Shops.
Hot Shops cafeterias and restaurants have been serving food worth leaving home for over 50 years. That's why you can always count on a great meal when you visit a Hot Shop cafeteria or restaurant. The way the folks at Hot Shops figure it, if they're going to ask you to leave your good home cooking, they've got to give you food worth leaving home for. So all their meals are carefully prepared from the finest ingredients. At Hot Shops, you know your family gets a nourishing meal. And what I like most about Hot Shops is their great variety. Why, they've got more salads and vegetables than some restaurants have entrees. Not to mention their fresh baked rolls, delicious dinners, and terrific desserts. So this week, treat your family to dinner at a Hot Shops cafeteria or restaurant.
And you take Joe's advice, and you'll see why people say, Hot Shops, food worth leaving home for.
Okay, I remember Hot Shops being around in Tyson's Corner Mall, and there was one at Bailey's Crossroads and other places. It's very popular in the area, but at that time, 1978 was the first year that Joe Theismann really started being the starting quarterback for the Redskins. He was a backup before that in the George Allen era to Billy Kilmer. As a matter of fact, in 1977, Billy Kilmer started out the season. Joe Theismann played part of it, and Billy Kilmer came back at the end of the season. But 1978 was the last year Billy Kilmer was on the team, and Billy Kilmer did play a little bit of the 78 season. But this was Joe Theismann's first year. I remember Joe Theismann come to movies at the Roth Theater that I worked at. I saw him a few times there, and I'd see him driving around in Vienna at times as well.
And welcome to the Redskins post-game show. I'm Ken Beatrice, and yes, it is a Saturday, and you're correct. I have not been joining you for Sports Call on Saturdays for the past 3.5 months, but today, you and I together for 4 big hours. So I'm really looking forward to renewing acquaintances with some of you whom I've spoken with in the past, and to get to know a whole lot of the sports fans in this area with whom I haven't had the opportunity to speak yet. 432 WMAL, that is the number.
Ken Beatrice did Sports Call from 1977 all the way up until the early 2000s. He was with WMAL for years, and later on I think he was on one of the ESPN sports stations, but he finally retired in the early 2000s. I actually called his show up a few times and asked him questions. I called him once in his office too and talked to him. But I have a tape of it from like 1993, and I have actually posted it on my Facebook page before of the time when I called Ken Beatrice. Almost all the talking is from him, but he would do answer questions about various sports, and of course he was always on to talk for a few hours after the Redskins games, and I liked him. I miss hearing him on the radio.
14-10, the Redskins' glimmer of playoff hopes were shattered by the monsters of the Midway, better known as the Chicago Bears, a team that was confused, chaotic, uncoordinated, and frankly poorly coached early in this season. All of a sudden, in the past 2 weeks, they have come on, especially defensively, despite the absence of their 2 prime linebackers, Waymond Bryant and Tommy Hicks. Those 2 men were missed, but they took up the slack. They have 2 number 1 draft choices, 2 number 3 draft choices. This team should make some hay in this year's superb draft. They will be even tougher next season. The Redskins' only touchdown engineered late in the 4th quarter by one Billy Kilmer. And it was rather an unusual play that scored the touchdown. A 16-yard bullet, as only Billy can throw a bullet. It bounced off of Ricky Thompson into the waiting arms of Gene Fugit. It was obvious that Kilmer's appearance on the field gave the Redskins' offensive unit a lift. However, Billy did have an interception, and you just do not build your football team around a 39-year-old quarterback. You simply cannot do it. Whether or not the lifting of Joe Theismann today spelled the end of number 7's tenure with the Washington Redskins is problematical at this point, I believe it very well could. Theismann could not get the Skins' offense on track against this Bears defense. The Bears offensively, they have a superb offensive line, 2 outstanding wide receivers, 2 of the better running backs in the game, Peyton being one of the best and Harper much underrated. They do not have a National Football League quarterback or a National Football League tight end. Let them pick those 2 up next year to go with that defense with the additions of Bryant and Hicks. They are going to be tough. Offensively, the Skins ran relatively well, but they just cannot put together a cohesive drive, primarily, again, because of the weaknesses on the offensive line. John Riggins did, in fact, gain 1,000 yards today. Second time in his career. Of course, it did take him 16 games this time, but he was not playing behind the type of offensive line that the old New York Jets had. So playoff hopes die amidst a 14-10 loss to to the Chicago Bears at RFK Stadium this afternoon. It was an exciting year in many ways. It was a strange year in many ways, bizarre even. It is unusual for a team to go 6-0 at the start of the season and then not make the playoffs. However, even during that undefeated streak, certain problem areas were obvious, and they spelled doom for the Redskins. The problem areas? Both lines, and perhaps a bit of leadership at the quarterback position. Also, a couple of injuries, but the Redskins were not hurt more by the injury jinx than many contending teams. They truly were not. So 14-10 loss to the Bears today. No playoffs for the Redskins in 1978. 432 WMAL, that is how you reach us here on the post-game show. Oh, before I get to the first call, this week's New York weekend winners in Amtrak's Redskins Super Bowl sweepstakes are E.T. Deegan of Silver Spring, Maryland, and B.V. Randolph of Washington, D.C. My congratulations to you both. And this was a tremendous contest this year, and I thank all of you for entering. And hopefully we'll have a similar kind of thing next season. And perhaps at this time next year, you and I will be looking forward to a post-game show following playoff action. 432 WMAL's the number, and you're first tonight on the post-game show. Hello.
Hello, Ken. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate both you and Sam Huff for your predictions. You were trying to temper the elation of the Washington fans when we were 6-0, and I think after the Philadelphia game, Sam Huff said that made a comparison between the Washington Redskins and New England a couple years ago when they were 6-0 and finished 7-7.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them turned out right. Secondly, I'd like to talk a little bit about strategy. The Redskins got the ball with about 3:50 or 3:55 left in the game, and on the touchdown drive that culminated in the pass that bounced off, I think, Danny Bugs into Gene Fuga's hands.
It was actually Ricky Thompson's
hands. No timeouts were called, and it seemed to me that when you're down by at least 11 points, I think,
mm-hmm.
you have to save some time.
Well, you do, but when you're down by 2 touchdowns, you must also save time for your second drive, and it's a very difficult decision to make. I might have called one. I might have called one timeout during that drive, but that's a tough decision. You got 3.5 minutes. Even if you score, you know you got to get the ball back and do it all over again. You know the Bears are in a prevent defense. They're going to let you drive and drive and drive down the middle of the field, which means they're not going to let you get out of bounds. It's a tough decision. You bring up a very valid point, but it's a decision that is difficult to question because it can be a mistake regardless of the direction you choose to take.
No, I understand. You have to pick your timeouts either early or late, but it seems that if you pick them early, let's say with 3:50 or 3:40 to play, then if you do get the ball back later, you can always dump the ball out of bounds or have a receiver run out of bounds rather than getting the ball back with 40 seconds to play.
Well, you can't always do that. That's the point. Because the defenses will play, they'll go into a revolve or a rotation and just hem everything into the middle of the field. And your only chance is having a wide receiver or a back. And I applaud the Redskins for using Thomas so much, both on the ground and in the air today, because he was the type of back that could have sprung one.
Too bad he didn't, though.
It came very close on one. You've got to give the Bears credit. Defensively, they were extremely tough.
Well, the Redskins were extremely tough defensively, except for one.
No, they really weren't. Because everybody in the joint knew that there was no way the Bears were going to throw the football. And if you're playing a 9 or an 8-man front, and they had 8 men, on occasion, 10 men, within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, blocking 5 on 8, 9, or 10 is a losing proposition.
I'm not talking about late in the game. I'm talking about the whole...
I'm talking about any time in the game. It was obvious that Phipps could not move that team through the air.
Okay. I want to congratulate you. You have a great show. I've been trying to get hold of you all year, and I finally did.
Well, I thank you very much for that, and it was great to make your acquaintance. I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
We'll talk about ACC basketball.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye now. 432 WMAL is the number here on the post-game show. I'm Ken Beatrice. It's 4 o'clock straight up here on WMAL Radio, 63 in the nation's capital. And right now, for those of you wending your way home from RFK Stadium, Officer Carl Miller in the WMAL Police Traffic Helicopter.
Traffic still very heavy as you come outbound, especially for the pedestrians.
as they leave the stadium to board the metro train. Apparently they are having some problems in the station itself because they're not letting the fans go down into the metro station, just a few at a time. On East Capitol Street, you're beginning to build now in that right-hand lane as you exit onto East Capitol, a correction on the 295. I'm looking down on the exit ramp. There seems to be a 1, 2, 3 car accident. It's on the exit ramp from East Capitol Street to 295. Be very careful there. Benning Road is very heavy outbound from 21st Street down to Oklahoma Avenue. To add to the problem, there's a disabled vehicle in the left-hand lane at 21st Street. Traffic on C Street also are very heavy as you go towards Capitol Hill. I'll be back another look in a few minutes. Officer Carl Miller, WML Radio 63, the Redskins traffic report.
Well, thank you very much, Carl. If you are out there returning from the game or just Christmas shopping, please drive very carefully. This is a time of goodwill and happiness. Please don't turn it into a tragedy for anyone. Right now, you're next on the post-game show. Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
David from D.C.?
Yes, David.
Yeah, I can't believe I actually got to you.
I'm delighted you did. And perhaps my being here on a day when I'm not usually here made it a little easier, and I'm delighted.
Yeah, okay. It's, it's the end of the year now, and they're out of the playoffs and everything, so, it's about, time to start thinking about quarterbacks for next year and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I agree with Dave Kindred. You know how he said in the post this morning that he thought Ken would, retire, right, or go to another club?
Mm-hmm.
This year, so the Redskins probably wouldn't have him anymore.
I think that's a possibility. I think it's a possibility that both quarterbacks from this year's team will be with another team.
Yeah, so if that happens, if Kim would go somewhere else and Theismann does, what do you think will happen?
Well, what will happen is the Redskins obviously will have to make a deal for a quarterback. They will receive a quarterback in return or in a trade involving Kilmer or Theismann, or they will have to come up with a high-round draft choice, draft a kid, and go with him. Whether it's a Thompson, a Fusina, a Rutledge, a Kruger up in northern Michigan, it's tough to say, but it's such an extraordinary draft. People are not going to be dealing high choices off very often.
Do you think they'll get somebody that's good enough to...
To what?
Just have to...
There is no way on earth they can build both lines in 1 year without any draft choices. Even if they had them, they couldn't do it.
So what other parts of the team do you think Pardew's going to have to build up?
Well, starting with the offensive and the defensive line alone, that seems to be plenty. I think he needs some help at linebacker. Scott and Houston are not going to play forever at safety. They have got to come up with another running back, preferably somebody to back up Riggins. They must come up with another wide receiver to go with Danny Buggs, because frankly, in my opinion, you can have both McDaniel and Thompson and Anderson. A lot of areas.
Yeah, it sounds like all that stuff would take a long time to get done.
It could very well. Now, I do believe the Redskins will sign more free agents than any team in football. And by free agents, there are going to be better free agents out there this year than any time in the past for two reasons. Number one, last year, the first year of the 16-game regular season and the shortened preseason, a lot of coaches had a hard time really doing a hard evaluation of their personnel, the rookies. So a lot of rookies with good potential were cut loose. Secondly, it is such an extraordinary draft that some good rookies this year are going to be cut loose during training camp, and it's going to be up to Beatrice and the rest of the personnel people to do their homework.
Yeah, well, it sounds pretty tough.
It is a tough job, but only time is going to tell. And I thank you for the call today.
Goodbye.
Take care. You're next on the post-game show on WMAL.
How you doing, Mr. Beatrice? This is David Cutler from Silver Spring, Maryland.
Yes, David, I'm fine, thank you.
All right, I just want to comment on a few things. I know people aren't going to want to hear the bad parts of the Redskins, but I think it's time to bring a few along.
Well, I think I just ran a litany of them.
Yeah, that's true. All right. All year you've said the Redskins' offense is geared to Joe Theismann.
Yes, that type of quarterback, that's correct.
Can you specify one? I really can't see it. He's not calling the plays.
It's the type of play they have within the system. The sprint outs, the rollouts, the deep drops, the long passes, the first downs, the gimmick type plays like the flea flicker, the reverses. They are geared for a man. It is geared to emphasize physical prowess as opposed to knowledge.
All right, I can get that.
Mr. Walton, his play calling kind of slowed down towards the end of the season.
Oh, I disagree. What happened is the other clubs that they played early in the year had nothing to base their defensive preparation on because this was a totally new offensive system. Once the defenses catch up with your offensive system and you're not surprising them anymore, it becomes a matter of execution. And that's where the Redskins ran into problems.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see one thing happen in the offseason, and you're talking about this trade possibly to Chicago with Theismann leaving.
Well, it's a possibility. It's a rumor, that's all.
Bring Peyton to the Redskins, trade for an offensive line, and leave Billy back there. And I think you got a playoff contention, Super Bowl contention team.
Well, I disagree with you.
All right. And
one more quickie, please.
All right, there will be a lot of changes this year. Hamburger, I think we'll definitely move on to the pastures. I hope McDowell stays around.
Well, I think
any major changes in the defense?
Well, the problem is, where are the bodies going to come from? You don't lop off heads until you have new heads to replace them.
Yeah, that's true. And the Redskins have to get Pardee, since he's been here, hasn't really made a good key trade. The Bacon-Lamar Parrish trade was made last year.
Well, but you've got to have bodies to trade.
Yeah, he's just got to get something in line. We'll get there, though. We'll be there next year.
Well, that is the type of optimism to have as a fan. All I do is caution you to recognize the realities of the situation as well.
Right. One quick comment. I was at every game this year, and I had to miss this last game. And I know I get ripped at the stadium and everything, but everybody that sits in Section 508, they saw my man Kilmer go in there, and let's hope we'll be there next year.
Okay. Thank you for the call tonight.
All righty.
Bye now. 432 WMAL is how you reach us here on the post-game show. I'm Ken Beatrice, 7.5 minutes after the hour of 4. And right now, you and I are going back to RFK Stadium for Sam Huff and the roundtable.
Okay, Ken, thank you very much. Kenny Houston, we're having a little technical difficulty here. Kenny Houston, Terry Herman, you're here with me along with Big Ron McDowell. Brought to you by Hot Shops Restaurants, serving food worth leaving home for, and Hot Shops Cafeterias, Washington's favorites. Okay, Kenny, well, no doubt about it, you guys are out of the playoffs by now. In the last 10 games, 2 victories out of the last 10. You have to be kind of surprised at that kind of play. What do you think?
Oh, very much so, and that's the reason we're out of the playoffs, because we just felt like after the first of the season, we possibly could have stumbled into 2, 3, or 4 games. And, right now, it's hard to be optimistic because I don't care how hard we try, we cannot get in those playoffs. The season's over.
Terry, it looked like, really everybody was out there today and doing the job, but really it just didn't seem to be that kind of enthusiasm that, it was hard to realize you had a chance for the playoffs.
Well, no, we all knew we had a chance to make the playoffs, but it's the same thing that's killed us all year, Sam. We get into position to make a score, or make a big play. You see that little yellow flag down the field, or somebody makes a mental error, and it's not saying much for our concentration, but when you're playing for the marbles, you got to be concentrating out there. You're playing professional football. You can't be making silly mistakes like that, because I think the last 10 games, it's just been that way, and it's been very frustrating. And I think the more that happened, the more people expected it to happen, and that's kind of the way the last half of the season went.
You're playing against Harkenstein out there today, a guy who sometimes, whenever the interception was made or something, he hit Kilmer, and he was clapping his hands in front of Kilmer's face. I got very upset in the broadcast booth. I said, that guy was in grade school when Billy Kilmer started playing, and there's just no way to treat a guy like Billy Kilmer.
Well, I didn't see him do that, because on that particular play, between him and Page, they ran a stunt. We zoned stunts, and I was on Page, and I was blocking him, so I didn't see Hartenstein even hit him or to start clapping his hands. I think if I saw that, I might have, because I'm a Billy Kilmer fan. That's not to say that I'm not a Joe Theismann fan, but Billy and I played together for a long time, and if I'd have seen Hartenstein doing that, I think I might have had something to say, or maybe thrown a cheap shot at him.
Well, we'll be back with more of the WMAL Redskins Roundtable right after this.
Hey, boys and girls, this is Joe Theismann of the Washington Redskins. You can be a winner with the Redskins and Hot Shops. Here's all you have to do. Have lunch or dinner at any Hot Shop restaurant or cafeteria, and you'll get a Redskins Hot Shops bicycle reflector free. Be the first on your block to get one. It fits any size wheel. It's easy to install, and best of all, you'll be safer when you ride. It's visible hundreds of feet away. And with your bike reflector, you also get a coupon for a free regular-sized Pepsi, good on your next visit to any hot shop. You can always count on a good meal when you visit a hot shop restaurant or cafeteria. So enjoy a great lunch or dinner at Hot Shops and start collecting your Redskin Hot Shops bike reflectors now.
Joe's right. These Hot Shops bike reflectors are terrific. They'll look neat on your bike. The offer is good for boys and girls 16 and under having lunch or dinner accompanied by an adult at any Washington area hot shop restaurant or cafeteria.
Okay, Kenny, defensively out there, it didn't look that bad, really. You know, you guys turned the ball over, 3 interceptions to the Redskins. Normally, turn that ball over, you get, by the Redskins, you get 3 interceptions. You're going to got to put more points on the board than 10 points.
Well, that's true. We started out with a bad series. We were a little slow starting, and they got that first touchdown. But after that, I thought defensively was a pretty good effort. And was surprised that we didn't get more points than we did because a couple of times I thought we had them. And then they got a couple of turnovers, too. So that was the difference in the ball game.
But you're going up against a guy like Walter Payton. You know, there's nobody in the game runs like Walter Payton today. Houston has Earl Campbell. Dallas has Tony Dorsett. But I think when you look around, Walter Payton, one time I saw you come up and force him. You had him for about a 3-yard loss, and he picks up a couple yards. It's kind of tough to play against.
That's right. Anytime, you know, the thing about Walter, he had such tremendous strength, upper body strength. And the time I came up and forced him, I don't think I could have got him down by myself, and I was just trying to buy time for help. And the guys got there, and he just lunged forward and got the 2 yards that he needed.
And whenever when you over concentrate on him, here comes a guy by the name of Roland Harper, not easy back to tackle.
Well, that's right. And we had goals today. We felt like we could stop Roland from getting 1,000 yards. We could win, and also stop, just kind of contain Walter Payton, keep him around 56 yards. And I think we might have accomplished both of our goals. And I thought defensively we probably played well enough to win.
Well, you did. You know, whenever you figure out that everybody playing defense got to figure that if you hold a team under 21 points, you should win. And I think that theory is as true today as it was when I played.
Well, that's true. The thing about it, if you should win, you should at least be in contention. And the thing about it, you just gotta have that effort, and I thought the effort was there on defense, and if we can keep it up defensively, then we get everything clicking as a team, and we should be, in everything.
Okay, Kenny Houston, Terry Hermeling, and I will be back with more discussion of today's game.
Hey, kids, have you heard about the Hot Shops wheel deal? Be the very first on your block to have your very own Redskins Hot Shops bike reflector. And here's Joe Theismann to tell you all about it.
Every time you have lunch or dinner at any hot shop, you'll receive a Redskins Hot Shops bike reflector free. It looks super on your bike, and you can put on as many as you need. They fit any size wheel, are easy to install, and best of all, you'll be safer when you ride. It's visible hundreds of feet away. And with your bike reflector, you also get a coupon for a free regular-sized Pepsi, good on your next visit to any hot shop. You can always count on a good meal when you visit a hot shop cafeteria or restaurant. So enjoy your next lunch or dinner at Hot Shops and get a Redskins bike reflector and Pepsi coupon free.
Thank you, Joe. The offer is good for boys and girls 16 and under having lunch or dinner accompanied by an adult at any Washington area hot shop restaurant or cafeteria.
I know it. You got the program on your earphones? Huh? Are we back? Yes, I think we're back here. Okay, thank you, Ken. We got Ron McDowell standing here with us, and of course we selected Ron McDowell as the outstanding defensive player of today's game, and Dan Love and I have chosen you, Ron, as the outstanding defensive player. You blocked the field goal today, and of course, hey, before I forget it, here's another Spido digital watch. I know you had it before, but this is from Bill Fleischer Jewelers, linebacker Bill Fleischer out in Maryland. I want you to have this watch.
I appreciate it. It's a nice watch, and I appreciate the honor. It's coming off loss. It's been a frustrating season, and today we felt defensively we'd done enough to get it done, but unfortunately it wasn't. And to say, I guess it just caps off a long year.
A long year, but number 79. I guess you were, God, you were playing. You seemed like you've been playing forever.
Yeah.
But to break through there and block the field goal today. Last week you blocked a field goal, which you thought you had, and then you get called for offsides, and everybody said, "Oh, well, he was offsides." But sometimes you have to try to get the jump on that thing.
Oh yeah. Well, today they did the same thing. We did the same thing with last week. He lifted the ball, and actually, when you look at the films, we weren't offsides last week, but he gets called that way, and we wouldn't change anything. When the center lifts the ball, we go, and it's just it becomes an option. so losing as far as the officials look, unless they're aware of it. And it's one of those misfortune. When you gamble that tight, it's going to happen once in a while. And unfortunately, it came at a bad time for us last week.
Well, old Pappy Time catches up with everybody. Is it caught up with Ron McDowell?
Oh, I don't know. I still enjoy playing. It's still fun. I'll wait to see what I decide to do in the off season. It's been a very frustrating year because I thought the way it started out would be a great year, and it didn't turn out that way. And every Sunday I've always tried to be ready to play and try to do the best I can do to help the team. And I have, I always felt if I wasn't needed, then it's time to get out of the game. So I think the swing here is going to be a little bit back to, the full swing of a youth type of thing and fill in. As I say, I really haven't thought about it that much. I just wanted to play as much as I could today.
Can I help you a little bit on your decision? Let me tell you one thing.
Well, you told me all the time ago.
Yeah, no, you told me 3 years ago.
You told me don't quit, so I haven't quit yet. Let them throw you out. Is that it?
Let me tell you a couple other things, okay? When you quit, they stop the paycheck.
Oh, is that it?
Oh, what a terrible feeling. And you know what else? Have to work 8 hours a day, Ron.
You're kidding me.
And you have to be there like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. You practice starts at 10. Oh, you got such a change coming over your life, you won't believe it.
On second thought.
Hey,
very good.
Nice being with you. Whatever you do, we're with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, we got Terry Hermling still playing here, still waiting by. Going to talk a little more about Harkenstein. He can pretty well control the defensive line of the Bears a little bit out there. I thought you guys did pretty good. Alan Page was in there. And really, stats-wise, we're going to try to get a copy of the stats. Joe Blair handed them to me, and you took them, Terry. What happened to it?
McDowell and he walked off.
All of a sudden, they're gone, But stats-wise, as far as that goes, the Redskins, the total net yards, Redskins 305, and the Chicago Bears 214. And I think in passing-wise, let's see what Phipps did, because I think some of these stats. And these are official final stats. In the passing department, Phipps was 6 for 10, 44 yards, and yet come away with the National Football League victory. Theismann was 13 for 21, 107 yards. Billy Kilmer, 8 for 10, 91 yards, and still lose. That's hard to believe.
Interject something in there, yeah. And Billy did that with 10 minutes to go in the game, and I thought Billy came in and just did one super job. Like everybody's talking, Billy Kilmer may not be here next year, and Ron McDowell may not be here. I tell you, I came in this league, and I was just a young kid when I first started playing with these guys, and I tell you, they really taught me a lot, and I think the world of both of them, and I hope that their careers don't end here, because I sure will miss them. McDowell is just one super football player for a man 39 years old. Like you said, he's ready to play every week, ready to make his contribution, and playing with people like that is they show leadership on the field, and it's just, you need that type of thing on this team. And I think we did lose a little bit of that going into the second half of the season this year. There just wasn't enough McDowells and Kilmers, and I just hope that I don't have to go through a season without these guys.
Well, you're looking back, mentioning the kind of people that you talked about. There was a guy by the name of Lenny Haas, who's not here, had that same kind of spirit.
Lenny Haas was, he probably more than anybody taught me how the game is supposed to be played and how to get ready to play football. He's one of the big parts, losing him as a leader on the field. Lenny was pretty banged up after 14 years, but I tell you, he always went down fighting. He was one super gentleman.
Then you lost George Stark, which hurt the offensive line.
That hurt our line very bad, losing George. When we did, I felt that George probably could have come back and played 3 or 4 weeks, but like, I'm not a doctor, so I couldn't make that decision, and neither could George. But losing him hurt us very bad, because George was off to one of his best years ever. He was playing well. It was just an unfortunate accident that happened to him.
Looking back, it's still kind of hard to believe I cannot get it through my head that you guys only won 2 out of the last 10 ball games. That's hard to believe.
I tell you, it's hard for me to believe, too. I think starting off and winning those first 6 games, people thought that all we had to do maybe is coast, and we would make the playoffs. You know, the team seemed to lose a little fire and togetherness. I don't know what's caused it. I thought about it. I, you know, searched my mind to find out what the problems were and what I could do maybe to help. But like I was talking about earlier, those little key mistakes all the way down the line, the last 10 games, seemed to just destroy us, and that's the way it ended today.
The Bears didn't seem like they wanted it too badly either, though. I mean, you guys, you know, broadcasting the game as Dan Lovett and I did, the Sunshine guy from Channel 7 always had a little sunshine for everybody, but it was kind of like they were a little flat. Both teams were flat. And Jimmy Franks, the general manager of the Bears, was on with us at halftime. He said, "I'll be glad when this season's over, when this game is over." And that's almost kind of like the way things went.
Yeah, I think that's the way the Bears felt. You know, I think if we would have got out there and started on them quick, they would have given up on us, but we didn't, obviously, and they got the first touchdown. But I still wasn't worried about it, because we were moving the ball every time we had the ball, we moved it well, but we were missing those 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, and I don't know what the stats show, but I don't think we converted 25% of our 3rd and short yardage situations, which, you know, in this league you have to do. You got to make those. You look at teams like Dallas, and I think they're in the 60% category where, you know, it's 3rd and you know, 5-6 yards to go. You got to make those.
Everybody measures this game in yards, but really 4th down and 2 inches to go. The Bears, so, and yet they did not call on Riggins to carry the ball. I thought, and I said on the air, if you've ever used John Riggins, now is the place. You're in scoring position, you got to get those 2 inches. Almost impossible to stop a big back for less than 2.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. I don't know. You know, I mean, you can't second guess Coach Walton on the sidelines, because I think he's done a tremendous job all year calling plays for Joe and the whole team. And it's not a short yardage situation like that. It's not the play that's called. It's in your heart. I mean, the offensive players that are in front of that back to run the ball have to make the block, so they can you know, we got to move them out so they can make 2 inches. And, you know, if you can't make those, you don't deserve to win.
2 inches, that's, you know, I thought you could fall for that.
It's absolutely ridiculous not to make that. You know, I thought no way in the world they're going to stop us on this, but they did.
In a huddle, you know, the thing I said on the air, that calling plays from the sideline, sometimes you lose a little bit of individuality. When you need the 1 yard, the quarterback sometimes will look at an offensive lineman, or you can speak up in the huddle and say, "Hey, run it over here. I got this guy. I'm going to get that yard." But when the play is called from the sideline, you lose that.
Yeah, you could say that, you know, but you don't like to say anything in the huddle to the quarterback to break his concentration, because he's trying to do his job and I'm trying to do mine. When I come off on the sidelines, I'll you know, interject something to the coach, maybe, and tell them that I feel like I can move my guy and we should go my way. But in the huddle, I don't like to say anything because it breaks the concentration of the quarterback.
Even on a key situation?
Well, even in a key situation, you try not to. You know, I thought about it, but you know, this way I do things, I try to keep my mouth shut in there.
Keep your head down and block your man.
That's right. You know, you got to do your own job first. If you're not doing your own job, then you can't say anything to anybody else.
Well, Terry, Dan Lovett and I chose John Riggins as the outstanding offensive player. He did get 1,000 yards today, and hopefully we get Dan Lovett is here with us. And you have anything to say, Sunshine?
Well, I just wanted to say to Terry Hermeling, and I truly enjoyed the season, and I really mean that. I know the last half was no good, but Terry, I enjoyed the first part, and I enjoyed being associated with the Redskins again for the 1978 campaign, and have a nice off season.
Well, thank you, Dan.
And I mean that sincerely. Have a nice year.
I know you do, Dan. And I'll tell you what, I enjoyed working with you guys and working with Sam and doing this show. I don't particularly enjoy doing it when we lose, but I guess that's part of the game. But like I said, I enjoyed working with you guys, and hope you guys have a nice off season. And we're going to come back after them next year full bore.
Do it to it.
All right, thank you, Dan.
You know that, Dan Lovett, he can still read a script. I had that all written out for him, and he read it perfectly, right, Terry?
That's up a lot of the words, just like he is on TV.
Well, one of those kind of years, though. But, you know, looking forward, I think that this club has some of the young ball players. They can come through. This has got to be next year, I would think, even a more solid ball club than this year.
Well, we have some spots to fill, but we'll have George Stark back, which will help us a lot. And then I got a good full year at tackle, back after playing 2 years of guard, and I felt like I had a fairly decent season, and I'm really, I'm looking forward to playing again because I stayed healthy all year, and I enjoyed playing even though it was an unsuccessful season for us.
Okay, Terry, thank you very much. We've got John Riggins, number 44, second time in your career. Got the watch for you, by the way. Finally got your wife's watch too, and one you won before. 1,014 yards, and most ever. Well, that's most even when you were with the Jets. You had 1,000 yards with the Jets, and this was your second 1,000 yards.
Just barely, and I have to say that it always seems like the last 30 or 40 yards are the toughest. The first 950 is too bad. But...
John, what kind of play did you run did you run a sucker play on that when you picked it up there? That's what I thought it was. Did you run it Alan Page on the sucker play?
I'll tell you what, it might have looked like it, but it was actually just a straight-ahead dive over the center, and Page had a stun on where he was coming down hard inside, and I'm sure it did appear to be a sucker play because it's such a huge hole there.
Well, you really picked it up, and by the way, here's these watches, and one for your wife and one for you, and they're they're digital watches from Fleischer's Jewelers of Maryland. And old Bill, I went up there and picked them up myself, and had Bill Fleischer's arm twisted up behind his back in order for him to give it to you. But I promised it to you, and you got to feel pretty good. I mean, I know you don't like to lose, but what a year you've had. It's almost, I can't believe they did not select John Riggins for the Pro Bowl. And I said that on a broadcast during the game. It's hard to believe that you're not going to go play in the Pro Bowl.
Well, I tell you what, it might be just as well. My rear end's killing me right now. I don't know if it's going to be healed up by January 21st. No, I guess that's when the Super Bowl is, whenever they play the Pro Bowl. But I'll tell you what, all the guys on the team, and I'm talking about all the wide receivers and all the running backs and all the linemen, they did a heck of a job for me. I got a few yards on my own, but let me tell you, most of them was from all those guys blocking.
John, in the past, I've never seen enthusiasm out of John Riggins like I've seen this year. You dedicated yourself to this year, that you were going to do everything that was needed of you, and I think you've done that.
I tell you, Sam, it started way back in Dallas last year when I got hurt, and when I left the field down there, I pretty much figured it was all over with. I figured the next day I was going to go in and have a ligament operation, and I know a lot of running backs that haven't come back from that type of operation. So when I got home, I decided that I was going to, try to get my shape in the best shape I could, and come back and play with intensity, and just more or less go for one last shot and just see what happened. And then, as it turned out, it was I had a good year, and I'm pleased with that.
You're developing into a leader on this ball club. I don't know if you realize that or not, but you can see it happening.
Well, what they call it, I'm a silent minority. I don't do too much talking to these guys because, they're all professionals and they know how to get themselves ready. I think that if I am a leader, it's the way I play on the field. That's the way I try to do it anyway.
That's the first.
All right, bear with me for a minute. I'm going to flip the tape around and put it on the other side. And continue this post-game show.
Indication of a leader, a guy who's willing to pay the price and does the job, and people follow. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's coming and it's happening.
I tell you what, like you said, you got to pay the price, but just like our economy, there's a lot of inflation in the game of football. It seems like the price gets steeper and steeper every Sunday.
You're a good man, John, and I know you're looking forward to next year, and I am too. It's over. You deserve the rest. And if everybody gave what John Riggins gave this year, you guys would have been in those playoffs, believe me.
Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate you saying that.
Okay, WMAL Redskins Roundtable is brought to you by Hot Shops Restaurants, serving food worth leaving home for, and Hot Shops Cafeteria, Washington's favorite. Back to you, Ken.
Thank you very much, Sam. And one final post-game helicopter report for those of you on your way home from RFK Stadium. Officer Carl Miller in the WMAL Police Traffic Helicopter.
Thank you. We still have slow traffic on East Capitol Street, Sumter Stadium, onto the Whitney Young Bridge as you head home this afternoon. One problem is if you're on 295 southbound from Finning Road, As you approach the East Capitol City, if you could switch over to that left-hand lane, that'll help ease the people to merge into 295 as they get off of the East Capitol Street. There's still a flow going on Benning Road from around 19th Street all the way out to Oklahoma Avenue. Once you get past that, it moves at a good pace and it slows again around Anacostia Drive all the way to the merge point with 295. To add to the problem, there's a two-car accident in the left-hand lane of Benning Road eastbound at the light at 34th Street. 19th Street, a slow going at the approach to Benning Road. 17th Street southbound, moving at a nice pace. Your normal slowdown around Potomac Avenue, but looks good down to Barney Circle. That south parking lot is just about empty now. A few people are hanging around, maybe because it's the last game of the season. The Metro boarding jam is now cleared up. You can go into the Metro boarding stations, no problems there. Traffic off Bladensburg Road, your normal slowdown at Mount Olivet Road, but looks good into New York Avenue. 295, your slowdown starts at the Burroughs Avenue all the way into the BW Parkway. I'll be back with a final look at the Redskins traffic in a few minutes. Off the call, WML Radio 63, Redskins Traffic Report.
And welcome back to the Redskins post-game show. I'm Ken Beatrice. It's 4:31 here on this Saturday afternoon on WMAL Radio 63 in Washington, D.C. 432 WMAL, that is how you reach us here. And you're next on the post-game show. And before you even say hello, let me thank you for your patience. Now, hello.
Hi. This is Dean from Seabrook.
Yes, Dean.
I've been here so long, I almost forgot what I wanted to tell you.
I do appreciate your patience, believe me.
First of all, I asked a question. Did the Redskins have a timeout left when the clock ran out?
No.
They did not. Okay, we were in the impression from the TV announcers that they had one. We couldn't understand why they didn't stop the clock.
No.
So obviously that's why.
They only give you 3.
Right. Okay, the next thing, I want your opinion on taking Joe out and putting Billy in. My personal...
That comes under the category, in my mind, of grasping at straws. They were looking for something to spark the offense. It may also have been the final admission that maybe Theismann isn't the man. Perhaps it was, perhaps it wasn't. I think it was a desperation move, trying to get some kind of emotion and continuity to the offense.
Right. But also, I mean, I realized that he really wasn't moving the team, but also he made the comment that we had a dormant offensive line again.
Yes.
If you don't have something in front of you, really, what's the quarterback going to do?
That's right. You know, everyone's going to be talking about 305 yards, but the fact is a lot of that yardage came when the Bears were giving you the short stuff.
Right.
During the drive at the end of the first half, which resulted in the field goal, and there was total chaos in the Redskins' offensive system at that point, if you recall, right near the end of it. They should have, in my opinion, run at least one more play, and the Thomas sweep I'm still working on, but that's neither here nor there. The fact is there was confusion again. And also during Kilmer's drives, it was obvious the Bears were giving them the short stuff over the middle. And they would have given it to them, you know, throughout.
Right.
And they were in the right defense, and they scored a touchdown on a fluke play, I mean a ricochet, and it just didn't bother the Bears.
Well, I really feel that, I think people get a bad opinion of Joe not being able to lead the team, and I understand you really have to earn your leadership at quarterback, but it's going to be almost impossible for him to earn leadership at quarterback if he's not put behind a good offensive line. I really feel if you put him behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, he could look just as good as, Stompert. Maybe not just as good, but obviously there'd be a completely big difference.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Leadership is not only performance. Leadership is a matter of personality, of character. Now, that is not to demean Joe Theismann. Not everybody can be a leader in every group. You might be a leader within one group and not within another. It's dependent upon your personality and the personality of the other members of the group.
Right.
So it's not a demeaning point, as I've said right along. It's not that I feel Joe does not possess the personality traits necessary to be a leader. I question whether or not he possesses them to lead this particular group.
Do you feel he'll be there next year?
I think there's a question of that in my mind right now. Yes, there is.
Okay, one last comment is that I really feel there's going to have to be some major trades.
Well, I agree with you, but the point is, whom do you trade?
That's the problem.
I mean, because every way you trade someone that's really worth something, you're going to create another hole.
Right. And I really think they have a problem there. I don't know where they're going to get the offensive line next year.
They aren't. There's no way they're going to rebuild 2 lines in 1 year. They're saying, well, we're going to sign a lot of free agents, and we're going to work with the guys we got. Well, the other clubs are going to do the same thing. Plus, they're going to be drafting a superb group of eligible college seniors. And it's going to be very difficult. And again, I really do appreciate your patience.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. You're next on the post-game show. What can we do for you?
This is Larry from Arlington.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
That's a lie. After watching 14, 16 games, I'm not. Number one, I heard Terry Hermeling talk about what a great series of games Joe Walton called. Now, Terry works for Joe Walton. I don't. I have thought his calls were singularly uninspiring from one end of the year to the other. I noticed the thing is based on a rationale that 2 or more coaches sit up in the press box and they look down and they analyze the defense.
That's correct.
The trouble is they're analyzing the defense for the last play. And while they're doing it, the defensive coaches on the other team are analyzing the same play. And the weaknesses that show up to our offensive coaches also show up to their defensive coaches. So they change that weakness, correct?
Well, that is correct, but actually that is not what they're doing. What the coaches in the press box are doing primarily are determining trends, not what they've done on a particular play, but what they have a tendency to do defensively or offensively under a given situation. 3rd and short, 2nd and long, and so forth, position on the field. What they are attempting to do is to determine trends, patterns that the opposition is falling into.
Well, this is what you might call computerized football.
Well, it's a human type of computer, though. The coaches themselves are trying to make these determinations. So it's not looking at a single play. What they are trying to do is determine the patterns or trends that the opposition is falling into. And believe me, every offense and defense falls into them. It's almost impossible to totally avoid.
I'm aware of that. It reminds me a lot of the reasons I finally quit watching baseball. Putting Lou Gehrig, who's a left-handed hitter, on the bench because he's a left-handed pitcher up. This business of playing averages, when you're talking about emotional human beings, I don't think works.
Well, it works if you take into account the humanity of the situation as well. I think you must consider both.
Perhaps that's our weakness. We are not.
Well, I don't totally dispute that. If Jack Pardee has a weakness as a coach, it's that he's almost too good a man. Jack Pardee would give 110% effort, regardless of his teammates on the field with him. And I think at times, Jack has trouble accepting the fact that not everyone does that.
I agree. Now, one last comment. You're not going to like it. Nobody else is. But it's this. Rather than trading Theismann, why not make him a wide receiver? He can catch the ball in his mouth and use both hands to fend off tacklers.
Well, I think that's a little cold, and I think it's a bit uncalled for. I think Joe worked very hard on a couple of areas which he had a definite weakness in the past, and that is a little more poise and patience in the pocket. I think Joe did curb his talking, especially to the media, a bit this year. Sure, there should be more of it, but that's his personality. And you don't bring about major behavior modification in an adult. Most people's personalities are set pretty well by the time they're 6 or 8 years old, and it takes something truly traumatic for it to change. And what might be traumatic could be a trade.
True enough. I would say this, that he's never learned that there's 3 dimensions in throwing a football. He tries to buzz it through people like a fastball.
You know, when Bert Jones came up, the receivers used to hide under the bench during the practice so they wouldn't have to catch him.
True.
But he learned. You're correct.
But obviously somebody's going to get in the way.
Yeah.
What you need is somebody who can arch it over them.
What you're talking about is touch. What you're talking about is touch, and you're correct. I have no argument with that at all.
Okay, good luck to you. It's been a pleasure listening to you.
Well, I hope you'll stay with us on Sports Call Sunday through Friday.
Goodbye.
Thank you. You're next on the post-game show on WMAL.
Hi, Ken.
Hi.
I'd like to talk about, I'm a Redskins fan, and of course, everybody's discouraged now and everything, but if Jack Pardee is the coach and Beatrice is the general manager, I think they'll do the best to get the Redskins their best next year. Obviously, they're not a playoff contending team right now, or maybe not next year, but, we all had winning seasons the last couple of years, and we just got to face the fact that we just got to rebuild and get another playoff contending team sometime in the future, you know?
You're absolutely correct, and that is the proper attitude to have. Pull for 'em. This club will be better next year than this year, but the problem is I believe the opposition will improve even more.
Yeah, and a couple things that Joe Walton's play calling today. One play they had third and a couple inches. I think it was the first half, and they had Benny Malone run the ball, and it went nowhere.
Well, the way that line did not block on that one, a Sherman tank wouldn't have gone anywhere.
You want to call it like a sweep on that play with Riggins?
You know, people jumped on Walton when he called the sweep on 4th and short in the past, and it failed. Now that the inside move has failed, you want to call a sweep. You know, what you try to do again is determine what the defense does in certain situations and counteract it. The fact is they didn't block anybody.
Right, that's true. And another thing, and when Kilmer was bringing them down in the drive down there, they gave the ball to Riggins, and they're surely gave the Redskins probably for two reasons. One, for sentimental, to give him his 1,000 yards, but the other reason, they should have, given the ball, passed the ball instead of running attack. That would,
Well, you've got to run now and then. A one-dimensional attack is easily stopped. Witness the Bears. Everybody in the place knew they were not going to throw. You put 8 or 9 men within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, and not even Walter Payton runs.
And I'd like to know your opinion on two players. One, Fred Dean. Is he a competent offensive lineman or not?
Not in my opinion. He's not ready for the NFL.
How about Dallas Hickman, a linebacker?
I think Dallas next year is going to surprise a whole lot of people.
Would you think him and go and take a hamburger spot if the hamburger retires?
That is exactly what I think will happen.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ken.
I thank you for calling today. Bye now. 432 WMAL, that is the number here on the post-game show. I'm Ken Beatrice, and you know there are some fashions that never grow old. They only get better. That's why you should give the classic design and fit of Mavest blazer or sport coat from Wolves for men and boys, where size is never a problem. Your man will look a little more dressed up, and maybe even a little more important, in a wool flannel, all-wool blend year-round weight blazer from Wolves, tailored by Mavest craftsmen who care about great-looking fashions. Wolves blazers start at $95 and are perfect for setting off with a pair or two of fancy patterned champion slacks. The go-everywhere, do-everything pants. Big and tall sizes are available, too. But if you don't know his size, give a Wolf's gift certificate, uniquely minted in brass coin denominations. Now there's a Wolf's for men and boys in Maryland, in the Lake Forest Mall in Gaithersburg. Or you may visit Wolf's 2 Virginia stores, one in the Ravensworth Center in Springfield and the second in the Oakton Center in Oakton in Fairfax. By the way, all 3 Wolf stores are open Monday through Saturday until 9 and Sunday afternoons from noon until 5.
Capitol Center presents Circus America, the most breathtaking, heart-stopping circus of a lifetime. Countless dazzling, death-defying acts gathered from the 7 continents. Circus America! Bloodthirsty jungle beasts and amazing feats of daring that will keep you glued to your seat. Circus America! The only circus to play Capitol Center.
Circus America starts Christmas evening and runs through January 7th. Only 19 performances, so don't miss it. Well, thank you, Lorraine. 432 WMAL is the number here on the post-game show. You're next. Hello.
Hello, Ken?
Yes.
My name's Nick.
How are you, Nick?
Oh, fine. I was wondering, do you think Jack Purdy put Billy in because Joe wasn't doing so well, or because it'd probably be his last game in Washington?
I think it was a desperation move and an attempt to get a little life and continuity into the offense, as I said earlier.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to happen to Team Fugitive next year?
Well, it depends on which road they choose to take in rebuilding. One would be to go with the free agents they're able to sign, and as I said, I believe they should be able to sign a good crop of free agents, and also use what draft choices they do have this year, the highest being the 4th. Or they may choose to go the trade route and deal off players who do have some return value, and Gene Fugit would be one of those athletes.
Yeah, I was wondering, I thought Team Fugitive might go to Detroit or something like that.
Why would Detroit want him? Detroit needs a lot of help, but tight end is not one of those positions. They've got 2 outstanding young kids in Hill and Gay.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks a lot.
I thank you for calling today, Nick.
Okay, bye.
Take care. You're next on the post-game show on WMAL.
Hi, I'm Jay. Well, I'm wondering, I was noticing that the Redskins were playing like they weren't enthusiastic at all. You know, like they really didn't care about the game.
Well, I really can't go along with that. I do not feel they played with the same intensity that they did against the Atlanta Falcons. But again, you're dealing with human beings, and they're not machines. They are not going to operate at the same and exact level of intensity in every outing. I did not think they were flat. I do not mean to imply that at all. However, I will agree with you to the point that they weren't flying high, but they were flying.
And also, I was wondering, with only a quarter left and they need to score 11 points just to tie, why was Walton calling a lot of plays runs down the middle?
Well, you call plays in areas where the defense can be exploited. You can't throw outside if they're rolling into double coverage and your outside men outside. You've got to take what the defense gives you. You cannot force things. When you do, you turn the ball over as a rule.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
I thank you for calling. Take care. You're next on the post-game show. Hello.
Hello, Ken. This is Lee Fruitman.
Yes, Lee.
We talked before on a couple of these subjects. Chris Hamburger retiring for starters.
I think it's a probability at this point.
Do you think he'll stay on and coach?
No, I do not.
You don't? Car business has got him covered, huh?
No, I don't think it's a matter of his needing the money. It's simply a matter of Jack Pardee will handle the linebackers.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because he does call his signals good.
He sure, I guess he does. He does.
I was just thinking, why not have Joe Walton to the defense,
Well, it's much more difficult to shuttle plays in defensively because you don't like to...
Stop signals or something like that.
Well, that has been done and has been done by many teams in the past. The Jets do it. Detroit does it. Cleveland Browns do it on occasion. And that is they flash the signals from the sideline. Unfortunately, they are frequently picked up, just like, a bullpen coach in baseball or a guy on second base stealing a catcher's signals.
And what are the Redskins going to do next year?
Punt. A lot.
Yeah, but I mean trade-wise or...
Well, again, I have no idea which direction they're going to go. Are they going to go the free agent and draft route, using what choices they do have available, or are they going to start making significant trades? I would not be surprised if the latter were done.
The trade?
Yes.
Who they got the trade bait?
Well, I think Mr. Theismann could go, Mr. Fugit could go. There's... they may not have any option on Thomas because all they can trade with Mike Thomas is the right of last refusal. In other words, he is playing out his option. He becomes a free agent as of now. And as a result, the only rights the Redskins have remaining with Mike Thomas is the right to match the best offer he brings to them.
Who are some of the Redskins that are more than likely just about definitely going to retire this year?
Well, that's impossible to say at this point. I think certainly Hamburger could very well call it a career. McDowell could, although I'm not as certain on him as I am in my own mind about Hamburger. Boy, I don't know. It's much too premature. I'd like the opportunity to talk to some of these guys once the despair of this loss is over with.
And this concludes the post-game show of the Redskins-Bears game in 1978. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for watching.